I love this man, love listening to him every single day whenever I can on his radio show. He is the star. The star. Move over, Stephen A. Smith. The star of First Take on ESPN. The great legend, Chris Mad Dog Russo, back on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Christopher?
Nice to talk. Well, you got sponsors for your tables?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. Come on.
You are something. The lead man of the NFL Network, who I shortchanged at the Super Bowl, which I will make it up to him.
Come on.
Down the road. How are you, Rich?
I'm fine. You put me on at the end of your program. You had the heart out. I don't care. Anytime I get a chance to talk to you. It's just as well, too, that you had a short amount of time because you only got to list one out of the 10 grievances you have against the NFL that you hold me personally responsible for.
And you handled it well. That was the Steeler one on Christmas Eve when they didn't see the video. And you said the video lasted a minute. They were freezing on the field. You got to get those older players back in warm areas.
Correct.
So you handled that very well that
Thank
day.
you, Christopher.
Very well.
How are you? So I saw on First Take yesterday, you said, why don't you leave Tom Brady in peace and retirement? And I'm like, I got to get Chris on the program to talk about this.
Oh, that was you who had that original story, did you?
Well, it's not a story. I just I went to the Combine, and have you ever been in a scouting combine, Chris? You ever been to one of them?
I have not.
Okay.
I have not been there. No, I have not.
Imagine the most gossip-filled place you've ever been to in your life, and then multiply it by a factor of 100. That's the NFL scouting combine. And so I decided to give everyone a little sense of the stuff that I got in my ear, the best I could, because it was multiple people who said, look out for this, look out for that. And I decided to, there's no other way to describe it, rumor monger. I did that. But this is what people were saying, and I figured I'd throw it out there. So I'm not reporting it that he's coming back. I'm saying there are some people that described to me the scenario in which he would. That's basically it. Does that make sense?
And that would be Miami, I guess, right? Most of all, Miami.
Well, I mean,
Dolphins were.
Yeah, because if the Dolphins do find the need to replace Tua because he can't answer the bell, heaven forbid, and you got the greatest quarterback of all time sitting in Miami, and he might be sitting there thinking, you know what? I kind of do miss the game, and I could still be the father I want to be by playing for the Dolphins. Then suddenly, now it makes sense why he's not signing a one-day with the Patriots or doing a salary cap favor contract with the Bucks. He's a free agent, and he can do it. That's the way it was described to me.
Yeah,
Chris.
I mean, I would be only based on what I saw on Instagram and the fact that, last year he ruined Selection Sunday by announcing his return. And he ended up us back on February 1st that, almost acknowledging that he changed the real deal. I'm going to go on that more than anything else, and I'm going to think that he is not going to return. It's interesting. You would know more about that football. Listen, and Bruce and Rich is on top of the football. I happen to stroll into a restaurant where they put me in a back table at the Super Bowl, and I could not believe everybody flocking to Rich to just discuss life on the network, meaning Cooper Manning, Trevor Lawrence, Garrett Wilson, E.B. Samuel, Sean Payton, Russell Wilson, the great Montana. And so you would know more than I would, but I would be surprised if he's going to play again. He's going to go get himself embarrassed. The people are going to go crazy. Really, Tom? I mean, it's going to look bad. I understand Miami, concussions Tua. They got talent. He almost went there originally with Ross, but I would be really, really surprised.
Me too.
I really would.
I would too. I was just, throwing out something I heard. Why are you surprised that people come up to me in a restaurant, Chris? Why would you be surprised?
Oh, you were great that day, at that night. And by the way, one thing about the Brady thing.
Yes.
Remember, I got to do what I'm mad about, and I do the 3 a week.
I saw that.
I had a lot of trouble finding a couple yesterday because, there's no football. There's no baseball at the moment to speak of. I actually threw the WBC in there. So it was hard to find a couple that really were going to stick. I didn't want to do the golf with the live because then it's an issue with the PGA Tour. So I was in a tricky spot. So I kind of ran out of a lot of ammunition. So normally I wouldn't have put that in.
Yes.
I put it in, and lo and behold, you watch it, which gets me in trouble.
But trouble. It's not trouble. It's caused me to say, you know what? I haven't had Chris on the show in a while, and I appreciate you finding the time to do it. I got Chris Mad Dog Russo here on the Rich Eisen Show. You've been around for the Jets forever, man, and here they are going for the Packer legend at the end of his career. I can't believe for a second time. Do you think Rodgers is a good fit for the Jets, Chris?
I do. The Jets need to been sort of irrelevant for such a long time. I did not want $100 million for Derek Carr. I think Carr is a championship quarterback. The Jets are in a weird spot with Carr because, yes, he's an improvement, but they're not going to win playoff games with him, I don't think. So as a result of that, if you're going to go after a QB, you might as well go after a QB that gives you a fighting chance in a postseason scenario, and Rodgers does that a lot more than Carr does. The Packers, they can't ask for that much with collateral back. You would know more about that than I would based on being out. I wouldn't think they'd have to give up a first round because of where the Packers are. It sounds like they want him out. They got Jordan Love sitting there, and he wants to play for the Jets. But I do think he would help the Jets. I hope he buys in, shows up at the OTAs, gets to know his receivers a little bit, and doesn't show up, a week in his training camp. Here I am. I hope he buys in, but I think that he's got plenty left. I think Rodgers will have a good comeback year. Not that he was that bad last year.
Right.
And I think it's the right move for the Jets. I think you got to do that if you have a chance.
Well, but a lot of stuff that he says outside of the world of football that doesn't get brought up to him in front of his locker by the 10 people in Wisconsin, I think would be by the 50 people in New Jersey. Don't you think? Like, that's the one thing.
I do.
That's the concern.
And I do think he could get himself in some trouble there. There's no question about it. And there's a lot of reporters here and talk show hosts and everything else. But again, the Jets are so desperate. The fan base is so desperate that as long as he played well in the games, they will put up with everything else. As long as he played well in the ball games, where in fact he, won some, good teammate, didn't sag his shoulders. They haven't had a quarterback in such a long time. I think that the Jet fan per se will look away from that and go out there and deal with it. So I think it's something that's going to happen, Rich. You're much more plugged in than I am.
No.
I have trouble believing that Woody Johnson would have flown out to California if he didn't think this could happen.
Yep.
So I think that you'll see Rodgers at the end of the day be a Jet.
How do you think Daniel Jones is going to fare with him now having a $40 million salary tag over him? You know the New York fan. If you don't, and also, Eli got paid, but he already had one in the case when he got paid like that.
They are paying Daniel Jones, and I guess they had to do it based on, where they were as far as the whole thing with Barkley and the franchise tag and everything else. Jones, to me, I am not one who is going to run thinking that because he played pretty well last year, easy schedule, great coach, that all of a sudden now Daniel Jones is going to respond and be this great quarterback. I don't buy that myself. I think last year all things kind of broke right for him. They took advantage of his legs, and they played the AFC South. They played Carolina. They played the NFC. They played the NFC North and the AFC South. Think about that for a second. They played Carolina. They played Jacksonville, and they played when they were bad. They played Houston. They played the Colts. They played a lot of bad teams, which I think helped the Giants with their schedule. So I am not convinced that all of a sudden he's now a top 12 quarterback in the NFL. I think the Giants probably had to do it. We'll see. But I do think the love affair could be a brief one. I don't think the Giant fan, if he plays Bailey, is going to forgive him so much myself. I have to be fair.
Doug, Chris, I'm totally with you, man, because if he does not perform at the $40 million price tag, we saw, growing up, Winfield, right, when he was Mr. May and how much he was getting paid, which is now how much I guess Daniel Jones would be making over a 2-game span, right? I've seen this before, and I hope he's ready for it, and I hope the Giants can actually make it to a second round of the playoffs. Certainly when Jalen Hurts is doing what he's doing, and he's about to get paid,
point.
In that division.
Good point.
It's
No,
good.
I know. Listen, we all know the going rate of quarterbacks is that money. So, I mean, they almost had to pay him. I understand what the Giants are doing. They gave him the $82 million guaranteed. Gino got $40 million guaranteed. They were able to slap the tag there, of course, on Barkley, which maybe they weren't going to be able to do. But I am one. I don't think Jones is that good. So, I mean, I am still under the belief that I got to see this again. And he played well last year.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to have to see it again as a fan to think that Daniel Jones is a, top 10, top 11 quarterback. He was at sort of borderline this year. I look at him more in that 15 category than I look at number 10. And for $40 million, I think you'd like to get a better quarterback than a top 15 guy. We shall see.
Couple more minutes left with Chris Mad Dog Russo here on the Rich Eisen Show. What do you think of the pitch clock, Chris? What do you think in baseball?
I think it's worked out well. I haven't watched that many spring training games.
Right.
But I think so far, I had Brian Snitker on radio. I taped him.
Yep.
The Brave manager today. He loved it. He thinks it's going to be a big plus. He thinks you'll see a lot more singles in the sport. So with the shift now being banned, he also thinks you'll see more stolen bases based on no more throws, incessantly to first base, and the bag is a little bigger. He liked the rules. I think, listen, if you can shave 30 minutes off that clock, thank God. The games are way too long. So I think this was something that baseball had to do. And it sounds like, listen, early returns, Rich, it's a big difference to enforce these batter box, shenanigans and pitchers throwing the ball at the clock behind them. You could do it on March 8th. Let me see you do it in the middle of July in a pennant race at Yankee Stadium in front of 50,000.
No doubt.
So,
I mean, Giants.
You got to keep that in mind.
Can you imagine Giants Dodgers? Your Giants against the Dodgers Sunday night. The whole country's watching on ESPN, or as many that watch on Sunday nights on ESPN. Yankees Red Sox, and there's a walk-off pitch clock violation. Get out of here. Seriously.
Like we had in that first spring training.
Get out of here. And I understand. I understand they're probably over officiating this right now. Just like the NFL does with a new emphasis on holding and things like that in the preseason, and we all go crazy, and then players adjust and umpires adjust or refs adjust. I don't know though. A walk-off pitch clock violation in a big game. Can you imagine? I don't care.
Let's see if they use some common sense. But listen, something had to be done. The games are way too long and too tedious. I mean, think about it. A football game is theoretically about 3 hours and 10 minutes, and that was the length of a baseball game. Football, they play 18. Baseball, they play 162. So something had to be done. I happen to think maybe this will work out. Baseball needs some good luck. Hopefully this works out, and we can have ourselves a season that's a little more brevity-oriented instead of tedious as far as the length of these games go.
Chris Mad Dog Russo, you're the man. How long are you going to keep doing First Take? It's fun to watch you. What are you thinking? How long you want? What do you think?
Listen, they've been good to me.
Yeah.
Stephen A. is good to me.
Yeah.
There's no way I would not do it if they wanted me back.
Yeah.
So I would suspect, at least for the time being, that I'll be part of the family there.
When are you going to host?
You know that family well.
Yeah, I do. When are you going to host SportsCenter? When are you going to be a SportsCenter host, Chris?
That I'm not going to do. I have to know my limitations. I'm not that good.
I don't know. I
can't tell.
I don't know. I mean, I'd love to see you do a highlight or two. I think you can expand the roster. You can expand it. You can do it.
You're funny. How's Southern California? Thing good?
Oh, things well. I mean, the Lakers are wondering if they're going to make it. The Clippers are kind of hanging in there. Dodger fans are already putting their napkins into their shirt with their fork and knife, thinking Ohtani's going to come here. I know that. Any Dodger fan will sit there.
I know he might go to the Mets. Might go to the Mets.
I mean,
keep that in mind.
I've never seen an owner like the Mets owner. By the way, I can't believe the Mets have gone from looking underneath their couch cushion for change to an owner that says, what luxury tax bill? The luxury tax bill, I think, is the amount of an entire payroll of a third of Major League Baseball teams. Chris, I can't believe that.
$364 million payroll. He's got Rembrandts in his bathroom, Steve Cohen does. And so as a result of that, he grew up out in Long Island as a huge Met fan as a kid.
Yeah.
And he's 68 years of age, and he's worth $15 billion. You put all that in the mix. You don't care about spending an extra $30-40 million on luxury taxes. I can promise you.
Yeah, you're making Super Bowl commercials for the Mets. I don't know. I can't.
Exactly, which they did.
I know.
Good point, Rich.
When has that ever happened? They never used to do
That's
that.
the first time they did those 30-second spots. I think it may have just aired in New York. I'm not sure if that was just a local spot.
No.
But, I mean, think about it for a second. They did a hell of it. And, by the way, speaking of the Super Bowl, myself, I hated that call. 3rd and 8, you can't make that call there on 3rd and 8. I'm sorry.
I was with you, too. If there was no call on that, I mean, all you have to do is look back at it, and you see Juju Smith-Schuster's body language. He wasn't going crazy in the end zone, hopping up and down. He was ready to run back to the sideline, thinking that's that play.
Good point.
All over.
Good point.
I thought the same thing too.
You can't end the season on that call. When you're throwing the flag there, you are ending the football season and ending that game. And if you leave it alone, the Eagles, you're at the worst, you can get an overtime. So I hated the call. I couldn't stand the call. I hate those kind of calls. If it was egregious, a la Saints-Rams, I got no problem with it. Obviously, that was not egregious. I hated the call.
Chris,
couldn't stand it.
Thanks for the call. Let's do this again more often if you're up for it. I will do that, Chris.
Okay, buddy.
Great spot, Chrissy. Thank you.
Good spot. Good spot.
It's a great spot. I think it was a great spot. Thanks, Chris. You take care. The great one and only Chris Mad Dog Russo. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.